Here's what Jung understood that modern spirituality deliberately obscures. Transformation doesn't come from learning new truths. It comes from accepting truths you've been unconsciously rejecting. Think about how spiritual seeking works. You're told to learn practices, gain insights, acquire wisdom, accumulate experiences, as if transformation happens through addition, adding more knowledge, more techniques, more consciousness to who you already are. But Jung discovered the opposite. Transformation happens through subtraction, specifically through removing the psychological defenses that prevent you from seeing what's already true. You're not missing information. You're avoiding realization. The truths that would transform you are already present. You're just unconsciously organized to not see them. Your entire psychological structure exists to filter out anything that threatens your current identity, worldview, or sense of control. Jung called these filtered out truths the unacceptable real, not mystical secrets, but obvious realities your psyche can't afford to acknowledge. And the moment you stop filtering them out, stop defending against them, stop avoiding them, they reorganize your entire existence. This is why the same spiritual teaching can be heard 1,000 times without impact. Then suddenly, the 1,001st time, it destroys you. Not because the teaching changed, but because your defenses finally collapsed. You stopped resisting the truth you'd been avoiding. Jung identified 5 specific truths that humans unconsciously reject, and that transform everything once accepted. These aren't abstract philosophy. They're psychological realities your entire life has been organized to avoid. Let's begin with the first one. The first truth Jung discovered will sound backwards to everything you've been taught, but once you see it, you'll never approach growth the same way again. Your shadow doesn't need to be transcended. It needs to be integrated, and everything you've rejected about yourself contains exactly what you need to become whole. Most spiritual teachings operate on the same assumption. You have a higher self that's pure and a lower self that's dark. The goal is to transcend the lower and embody the higher. Escape darkness, become light. Overcome ego, realize divinity. Jung said, "This is spiritual bypassing disguised as spirituality, and it's keeping you fragmented, weak, and forever dependent on techniques to maintain false purity." Here's the truth you've been avoiding. Your shadow contains your disowned power. Every quality you've repressed, rejected, denied. It's not there because it's bad. It's there because at some point, expressing it was dangerous. So you buried it. And with it, you buried the energy, creativity, and potency it contained. Your repressed anger contains your capacity for boundaries. Your disowned selfishness contains your ability to prioritize yourself. Your rejected aggression contains your power to act decisively. Your denied arrogance contains your self-worth. Think of it like a dam holding back a river. You've been taught that the river is dangerous, too wild, too powerful, too destructive. So you built a dam to contain it, calling this spiritual development. But the river wasn't meant to be dammed. It was meant to flow, to irrigate, to generate power. By blocking it, you haven't eliminated its force. You've just trapped it behind the dam, where it stagnates and loses its ability to create life. The power you need is in releasing the dam, not building it higher. Jung watched patients transform, not through transcending their darkness, but through reclaiming it. When people stopped trying to dam their shadow and instead learned to channel it, everything changed. They discovered that the very qualities they'd spent years repressing were the source of their vitality. The anger became boundaries. The selfishness became self-respect. The aggression became decisive action. This is the truth that transforms. You're not too dark. You're not dark enough. You've disowned half your psyche in pursuit of spiritual purity, and that disowning has left you weak, fragmented, and dependent on maintaining an exhausting performance of goodness. Real power comes from integration, owning all of what you are, the light and the shadow, the divine and the demonic, the loving and the ruthless, not acting out every impulse, but acknowledging every capacity. Jung put it bluntly, "I'd rather be whole than good, because goodness is a performance, wholeness is truth, and only wholeness contains real power. Once you accept this, that your transformation requires integration, not transcendence, everything shifts. You stop trying to kill parts of yourself and start reclaiming them. Stop performing purity and start becoming whole. Your shadow isn't your enemy. It's your disowned power waiting to be reclaimed. If the first truth challenges your relationship with darkness, this second one demolishes your entire approach to suffering. And once you see it, your relationship with pain fundamentally transforms. Your suffering isn't a mistake to fix, it's a message to decode. And trying to eliminate it is preventing the transformation it's trying to create. Every spiritual teaching today offers the same promise: techniques to eliminate suffering, meditate away your anxiety, manifest away your problems, affirm away your pain, think positive, raise your vibration, escape suffering through spiritual practice. Jung said, "This is pathological avoidance disguised as healing. You're not healing, you're medicating. Not transforming, you're numbing. And the suffering you're trying to eliminate contains the exact information you need for transformation. Here's the truth modern spirituality won't tell you. Suffering is how the psyche signals that something needs to change. It's not punishment. It's not bad luck. It's not low vibration. It's intelligent communication from your unconscious that your current way of living is incompatible with your authentic self. That anxiety you're trying to meditate away. It's telling you that you're living in ways that betray your truth. That depression you're trying to think positively through, it's signaling that your life has become meaningless and requires fundamental reorganization. That relationship pain you're trying to manifest away, it's revealing patterns that need integration, not elimination. Jung watched this repeatedly. Patients would come in trying to eliminate symptoms, fix the anxiety, cure the depression, end the suffering. And Jung would say, "Your symptom is your health trying to emerge. What if we stop fighting it and start listening to it?" One patient, a successful lawyer, had crippling anxiety. Years of meditation, therapy, medication, nothing worked. Through analysis with Jung, he discovered his anxiety wasn't irrational, it was intelligent. His unconscious was screaming that his career was destroying his soul, his marriage was based on false pretenses. His entire life was a performance of what he thought he should be. The anxiety wasn't the problem, it was the solution trying to emerge. It was his psyche's way of saying, "This life is killing you. Change it." Once he stopped trying to eliminate the anxiety and started listening to it, everything transformed. He left law, ended the marriage, rebuilt from scratch. The anxiety dissolved not through spiritual practice, but through authentic change. This is the truth that transforms. Your suffering is purposeful. It's not evidence of spiritual failure. It's evidence of psychological intelligence. Your psyche is using pain to communicate what words can't reach. When you accept this, when you stop seeing suffering as the enemy and start seeing it as communication, your entire relationship with difficulty shifts. You stop asking, "How do I eliminate this?" and start asking, "What is this trying to tell me?" You stop medicating with spiritual practices and start transforming through authentic response. Stop bypassing pain and start metabolizing it. Stop seeking to transcend suffering and start learning its language. Jung's insight. The wound is where the light enters, not by transcending the wound, but by entering it deeply enough to discover what it's protecting, what it's communicating, what transformation it's demanding. Your suffering isn't the obstacle to transformation, it's the doorway. And trying to eliminate it is like trying to ignore the fire alarm while your house burns. The alarm isn't the problem, and your spiritual practices that silence it aren't the solution. The first two truths challenge your relationship with darkness and suffering, but this third one demands something most people are never willing to give: your belonging. Real transformation requires betraying collective values, and you can't individuate while maintaining collective approval. Every human is born into a collective: family, culture, society, religion. And that collective has agreements, values, beliefs, rules, spoken and unspoken, conscious and unconscious. You're taught what's acceptable, what's shameful, what's success, what's failure, what's right, what's wrong. Most people spend their entire lives unconsciously conforming to these collective values. Not from weakness, from survival. The collective provides belonging, security, identity. Betray it, and you risk exile, rejection, isolation. But here's what Jung discovered. You cannot become yourself while conforming to the collective. Individuation, the process of becoming who you actually are, requires betraying who the collective needs you to be. Think of it like a tree growing in a shaped container. The container, your family, culture, society, bends the tree as it grows, forcing it into a specific shape. The tree doesn't know it's being shaped. It just grows within the constraints given. But eventually, if the tree continues growing, it will either break through the container or be permanently deformed by it. Transformation means choosing to break the container, even though the tree has spent its entire life believing the container's shape was its natural form. This is the truth most seekers avoid. Transformation creates betrayal. You betray your family's expectations when you choose your path over theirs. Betray your culture's definition of success when you pursue meaning instead. Betray your religion's certainty when you honor your doubt. Betray your social group's values when you integrate truths they reject. Real transformation makes you a heretic, not because you're rebellious, but because you're authentic. And authenticity inevitably conflicts with collective programming. Jung saw this create profound suffering. Patients would begin transforming, integrating shadow, pursuing authentic purpose, living from their truth. Then the collective would respond with punishment disguised as concern. What's wrong with you? You've changed. This is the psychological truth that transforms everything. The collective will punish your individuation, not from malice, but from unconsciousness. Your authenticity threatens their conformity. Your freedom reveals their imprisonment. Your transformation exposes their stagnation. Jung was clear. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. Yet the collective demands everyone wear the same shoe, follow the same recipe, conform to the same values. When you accept that transformation requires betraying the collective, When you're willing to lose belonging to gain yourself, everything changes. You stop seeking collective approval and start honoring individual truth. Stop conforming to inherited values and start creating authentic ones. Stop being who they need you to be and start becoming who you actually are. This truth transforms because it gives you permission. You're allowed to disappoint people by being yourself. You're allowed to betray collective expectations. You're allowed to choose individuation over belonging. The cost is real. Some relationships end. Some communities reject you. Some people you love can't come with you. But Jung says the alternative is worse, conforming forever while slowly dying inside. If these truths are confronting something in you, showing you that your darkness contains power you've denied, your suffering contains messages you've ignored, your belonging requires conformity you've outgrown, you're experiencing what Jung called the shock of truth. Not because these insights are new, but because your defenses against seeing them are finally collapsing. Jung believed real transformation happens in moments like this, when you stop resisting what you've always known but couldn't accept, when the truth you've been avoiding finally penetrates your consciousness. Before we explore the final two truths that reveal why transformation is both terrifying and necessary, check out our new guide, True Self-Discovery, with 24 practical reflection exercises designed to help you find your way within. Click below to get True Self-Discovery. Let's continue, because these next truths show why the transformation these realizations create isn't just personal, it's archetypal. This fourth truth is the realization that stops most people in their tracks and transforms the willing few. Your ego, the thing you think you are, has to psychologically die for yourself to emerge. And every spiritual practice that avoids this death is keeping you trapped. Here's what Jung discovered that modern spirituality desperately avoids. There's no transformation without ego death, not metaphorical death, not gradual dissolution. Actual terrifying psychological death of everything you've identified as you. Your ego is the constructed self, the image, identity, story, role you've built and defended your whole life. It's not bad or wrong, it's just not real. It's a psychological structure designed to navigate social reality, but it's not who you actually are. And every spiritual practice that promises transformation while letting the ego stay intact is selling comfortable delusion. You can meditate for decades, attend 1,000 retreats, collect every spiritual experience, and if your ego remains, you haven't transformed. You've just created a spiritual ego. Think of the ego like a cocoon. The caterpillar builds the cocoon and lives inside it, and for a while, the cocoon is necessary. It's protection, identity, structure. But transformation requires the complete dissolution of the caterpillar inside that cocoon, not improvement of the caterpillar, not a more spiritual caterpillar, actual liquefaction, breaking down to cellular soup before reforming as something entirely different. The butterfly emerges only after the caterpillar completely ceases to exist. There's no way to become a butterfly while remaining a caterpillar in a cocoon. Jung called this ego death, and he insisted it wasn't optional for transformation. You can't become the self while clinging to ego identification. You can't be whole while protecting the part. You can't be transformed while ensuring the transformer survives. This is terrifying because ego death feels like actual death. Your psyche can't distinguish between psychological annihilation and physical annihilation, When your identity dissolves, it experiences the same terror as physical dying, because to the ego, it is dying. This is what transformation actually requires, not upgrading your ego to a better version, not spiritualizing your identity, but letting the entire psychological structure die so that something beyond ego can emerge, what Jung called the self. The self isn't an improved ego. It's what remains when ego dies. It's not personal. It's transpersonal, not constructed. It's discovered, not defended. It's surrendered to. But here's why most people never experience this. You can't kill your ego. It can only die. Every attempt to kill it is the ego trying to control its own death, which just reinforces it. Ego death happens through surrender, not effort, through collapse, not construction, through life circumstances that crack your defenses until the ego can't maintain itself anymore. When you accept that real transformation requires ego death, not metaphorically but psychologically, everything changes. You stop trying to improve yourself and start surrendering yourself. Stop protecting your identity and start letting it die. Stop seeking transformation as ego achievement and start allowing transformation as ego dissolution. This is the truth that transforms. You're not going to become enlightened. The you that wants enlightenment is going to die, and something that was never born will remain. Most people reject this truth because the cost is too high. They want transformation that lets them survive as the transformer. And that transformation doesn't exist. If the previous truths challenged your assumptions, this final one demolishes the entire premise of modern spirituality and replaces it with something far more meaningful. You're not here to be happy. You're here to become whole. And the moment you accept that, suffering transforms from obstacle to opportunity. Every spiritual teaching today promises the same thing: happiness, peace, joy, bliss, contentment, as if the goal of existence is to feel good, as if spirituality is about optimizing your emotional state, as if transformation means achieving permanent positive affect. Jung said, "This is pathological immaturity disguised as enlightenment. You're not here to be comfortable. You're here to become conscious. And consciousness requires everything happiness avoids: darkness, difficulty, death, descent." Here's the truth that changes everything. Wholeness matters more than happiness, and wholeness requires integrating everything: light and shadow, pleasure and pain, success and failure, life and death. It requires becoming complete, not comfortable. When you're pursuing happiness, suffering is the enemy. You avoid darkness, medicate pain, eliminate difficulty, bypass anything uncomfortable. Your entire life becomes oriented around feeling good, and when you don't, you think something's wrong. But when you're pursuing wholeness, suffering becomes material. Darkness is necessary. Pain contains information. Difficulty creates growth. The uncomfortable is where integration happens. Jung discovered this through his own experience. After his break with Freud, he entered what he called his confrontation with the unconscious, a period of profound psychological descent. Depression, visions, chaos. By happiness standards, he was failing. By wholeness standards, he was transforming. He wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Not the curated, comfortable, acceptable parts, all of it. The darkness, the madness, the chaos, the parts you've spent your life avoiding. Accepting that wholeness includes everything." One patient came to Jung seeking happiness. She'd tried therapy, meditation, medication, manifestation. Nothing created lasting contentment. Jung told her something that changed everything. Stop seeking happiness. Start seeking truth. Because truth leads to wholeness, and wholeness contains something better than happiness, meaning. She realized she'd been running from her grief over her father's passing, medicating it with spiritual practices. The path to wholeness required entering the grief, not transcending it, feeling the darkness, not bypassing it, integrating the loss, not eliminating it. When she stopped pursuing happiness and started pursuing wholeness, everything transformed. She still experienced pain, but it was meaningful pain. Still faced darkness, but it was purposeful darkness. Still struggled, but the struggle was creating depth rather than draining life. This is what Jung meant. Happiness is surface. Wholeness is depth. Happiness is dependent on circumstances. Wholeness is independent of them. Happiness is fragile. Wholeness is resilient. Happiness avoids half of life. Wholeness includes all of it. When you accept that you're not here to be happy, that you're here to become whole, your entire approach to life transforms. You stop avoiding difficulty and start mining it for growth. Stop medicating darkness and start integrating it. Stop seeing suffering as failure and start recognizing it as material for wholeness. You realize that the meaningful life isn't the comfortable life. The deep life isn't the happy life. The whole life isn't the pain-free life. And paradoxically, when you stop pursuing happiness and start pursuing wholeness, you access something deeper than happiness, contentment with what is. Not because everything's perfect, but because everything, including imperfection, is part of your wholeness. This is Jung's final truth. You're here to become psychologically complete, and that completion requires including everything you've been avoiding in pursuit of happiness. Once you accept this, transformation becomes inevitable because you stop resisting half of reality and start integrating all of it. Let me synthesize these 5 truths. Jung said, transform everything once you accept them. 1. Your darkness contains your power. Integration, not transcendence, creates wholeness. 2. Your suffering is purposeful. It's intelligent communication, not random punishment. 3. You must betray the collective. Individuation requires choosing authenticity over belonging. 4. The ego must die. Real transformation requires psychological death, not improvement. 5. You're not here to be happy. You're here to become whole, and wholeness includes everything. These truths are difficult because they demolish the comfort modern spirituality promises. They reveal that transformation isn't about feeling better. It's about becoming real. Not about transcending darkness, but including it. Not about eliminating suffering, but understanding it. Not about maintaining belonging, but finding yourself. Not about improving ego, but surrendering it. Not about achieving happiness, but embracing wholeness. Most people reject these truths not because they don't see them, but because accepting them requires too much death. Death of comfort, death of illusions, death of belonging, death of ego, death of the happiness project. But Jung discovered that once you stop resisting these truths, once you accept them fully, they do something miraculous. They reorganize your entire life around truth instead of comfort. And that reorganization is what transformation actually is. You stop seeking and start seeing. Stop avoiding and start integrating. Stop performing and start being. Stop fragmenting and start completing. The transformation isn't dramatic. It's radical. Not loud, but fundamental. Not an achievement, but a recognition of what was always true but couldn't be accepted until now. If these truths confronted something in you, Jung would say, you've been avoiding them because accepting them requires death. Death of who you think you should be. Death of what you think life should be. Death of the comfort you've been protecting. But here's what Jung discovered. On the other side of that death is something better than happiness. It's authenticity. Better than comfort. It's truth. Better than belonging. It's individuation. Better than ego. It's self. Better than happiness. It's wholeness. The 5 truths transform not by adding something new, but by removing the defenses that prevented you from seeing what was always real. Your darkness is your power. Reclaim it. Your suffering is communication. Listen to it. Your authenticity will betray the collective. Honor it anyway. Your ego must die. Surrender to it. Your wholeness matters more than happiness. Choose it. These aren't philosophical ideas to contemplate. They're psychological realities to accept. And the moment you stop resisting them, stop defending against them, stop avoiding them, they transform everything. Not because they give you new information, but because they remove the psychological structures that kept you from living according to what you've always known but couldn't accept. Jung's promise: accept these truths and your life reorganizes around authenticity, depth, meaning, and wholeness. Resist them and you'll stay comfortable, fragmented, and forever seeking the transformation that can only come from accepting what you've been avoiding. The choice is yours. But Jung says, you can't unknow these truths once you've seen them. You can only accept them or resist them. And resistance is exhausting. If these truths revealed something you've been avoiding, subscribe to this channel where we explore Jung's unfiltered psychology for those ready for truth over comfort. To dive even deeper into Jung's revolutionary psychology and what it means for your spiritual awakening, click the recommended video on your screen now.